One of the most commonly cited problems among Kenyan diasporans relates to the problem of loneliness. Pretty much every single Kenyan diasporan that I've spoken to, at one point or the other, has complained about feeling lonely and sometimes extremely lonely. Now, many of us, if not all of us, funnily enough, experience loneliness even when we are surrounded by lots of people. So this is not just something that happens when people are there by themselves. It's funny that you could feel extremely lonely when in the middle of a ton of folks. It sounds odd, but it's actually true. Now, some days are actually worse than others, and actually some times of the year are even worse. So in this video, I will share more details about this common problem that almost all diasporans experience at some point. But before we do that, good evening, friends. Today, as you can see, we are making one of our final videos right before we leave. We are obviously shooting in Long Beach, California. We are about to head out to Karateng, which is where we typically film our videos. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, Karateng is an amazing village in Kisumu in Western Kenya. But we tend to go back and forth between Long Beach and Karateng as we prepare to eventually turn permanently. So if you're new to the channel, we encourage you to watch till the end. And if this content interests you, feel free to subscribe or just join us as a regular viewer. So today we are going to spend some quality time with family, doing all kinds of activities besides eating. We're just getting the bikes ready to go ride our bikes around town a little bit. But it's Thanksgiving in America. But of course, since we are Kenyan-Americans, we have to add the Kenyan twist to Thanksgiving celebration right here. But just to be clear, many communities around the world celebrate Thanksgiving. And so I don't want to give the impression that Thanksgiving Day is inherently an American holiday. Folks do it at different times in different styles. However, there is a version of Thanksgiving Day celebration that those of us who come from Africa meet when we come to America. So informally, for those who are unfamiliar with the American version of Thanksgiving, I encourage you to just look it up, just Google it up. I don't think 10 minutes is enough for us to discuss that. So just look it up, read about it, but here are some of the things you might expect. Of course, the main thing about Thanksgiving in America is the food part, where for the most part, folks get together. Usually, I think it's the last Thursday in November. People get together as a family. They put together amazing meals, which often include things like turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, pumpkin pie, roasted vegetables like Brussels sprouts, green beans, butter rolls, corn pudding, sweet potatoes, gravy, and many other things depending on family tradition. I've seen a variety of foods that often vary as a function of a family's cultural heritage. Like when I visit my Filipino friends, you'll see a little bit of a twist to it that reflects the Filipino heritage. Same thing with the Indian families, Kenyan families, Spanish families, and things like that. So the one common thing that I see almost in every household is turkey that, of course, can be made in different styles. So what we're going to do today is do sort of like an American Thanksgiving with a Kenyan twist to it, and you'll see what that looks like when we're done riding the bike. And once in a while, I see families watch football in the house. Other times, you see people playing games in the backyard, or after eating, folks go to the beach because we live right by the beach. And so after dinner, people go to the beach, or they go to the beach right before dinner, come back, eat, and just spend time together. So personally, this is one of my favorite holidays in America. In part because it gives us time to just commune as a family with friends and all that. And I believe this is one of those traditions that we found in America that I would really enjoy continuing even when we eventually move back to Kenya. So the other thing that happens too, at least within my circles, that a lot of American families tend to invite friends who may not have a place to go, because unfortunately not everybody has a place to call home, or has a group of folks they call family that they can get together with and celebrate, as you see us doing now. So over the years, over the many years I've been around, I have had the honor of being invited to join other families for dinner, and now I and my family and I have the privilege of hosting folks who would like the same. And so if you're out there doing the same thing, again, I hope you think about the people who may not have family to share time with. But I love that about Americans, that folks are very happy to open up their doors to strangers, or even just friends or neighbors who may not have a place to go. And this is one thing I really love about the spaces I've lived in America. So besides food, I as I said earlier, I really enjoy the quality time, the discussions, the opportunities to connect, to meet new folks. Because in many cases, when I visit people, even the same family multiple times, there's always a new person that is invited. Often a person who maybe just moved straight from Africa, could be a new neighbor, could be a single person who is not married, does not have a family. So Thanksgiving dinner, besides the amazing food, always offers opportunities to just reconnect with folks that you've not seen in a while, and just get to meet new folks. So yeah, like I said, I something I strongly encourage folks to try, even if you're not an American, or even if you're in another country, and it's a tradition that I think would easily fit in most cultures. But remember, as I said earlier, Thanksgiving celebration happens everywhere in the world. I mean, almost everywhere that I'm aware of. We just do it at different times, for different reasons, and in different formats. So what we do in America may not necessarily mirror what's out there, but I've seen all kinds of Thanksgiving celebrations. So I want to be clear, especially for my American audiences who have not lived outside the US. Just get to know that many of us celebrate Thanksgiving for very different reasons and in different ways. So in the Kenyan household, as you can tell, it relatively mimics what you can find in mainstream American families. But we add certain things that are Kenyan. As you can see, ugali has to be there. Then we have usually some kind of vegetables, which could be sekoma, an example of sekoma, and sometimes you have this one is something that I think we get from an Indian store. They call it methi, but when we cook it, it almost comes out like the traditional vegetables that we cook at home. In fact, this one tastes more like osuga. I'm not sure how you call osuga in English or other languages, but my wife does it so well that at the end of it, it tastes almost exactly like osuga. And maybe that's what it is among the Indians as well. So again, Thanksgiving is an excellent time to get together, celebrate. But at the same time, unfortunately, Thanksgiving is probably one of the loneliest days for many of us in diaspora. And for obvious reasons. For one, if you think about folks who have just moved to the US, have very few connections, or have connections that are not as strong, it's very easy to quote unquote fall through the cracks. And so while you're not connected, sitting at home, getting poured out of your mind, everybody else is celebrating and having a good time. In fact, as we were riding around the neighborhood, we could see families sitting together. You could smell the food everywhere. So for a person who has nowhere to go, it feels exceedingly lonely to sit in your apartment or in your home by yourself in front of the TV, just looking for something to do, while everybody out there is partying. So I think there was maybe a year or two that, for me, I had to work, and it was not fun. It was not fun. And that brings me to the second group of folks who usually find Thanksgiving exceedingly lonely. And that is folks who have no option but to work. There are people who work in the healthcare field, or people who do duties that require somebody to be on call or to be at work. So with some of these folks, depending on where you work, there could be celebrations that are organized at work to sort of just get people enjoying a little bit of Thanksgiving. Or in some cases, they simply bring food and folks can eat as they work. But then there are specific types of jobs that don't even have that option. I think some of these may be utility workers who may be out there fixing like power lines. You may have people in security. So there are specific types of jobs that don't have the option of celebrating at work. And it can be really, really lonely. I remember back in the days, there were times when, because of the job that I had no choice but to stay at work, and the weather was crappy. And remember, this is just right about when winter is about to set in. So it gets dark fairly early, again, depending on where you live. Where I lived in Western Pennsylvania, sometimes it will be like 3:30, 4 p.m., and it will be super, super dark and cold. So you can imagine it's dark, cold, and you're by yourself. And all you can think about is the family you left back at home. It was really, really lonely. Now, the second most lonely day, at least in my experience, is Christmas Day. And I'm assuming many of my viewers are already familiar with Christmas Day. And so I don't need to explain what that is. And if you're not sure, again, I strongly encourage you to go look it up, see what that means. I remember the first Christmas that I found myself in Richmond, Virginia, after moving from Pennsylvania. I had not made a lot of connections, and so I just decided to relax at home and plan to find something to do. And then on Christmas morning around 10:30ish, I realized I had not done my groceries. So I hopped onto my car and drove around, and literally almost every single thing was shut down in Richmond. And I found that really strange. In fact, shock on me, even Walmart was closed. Because I always assume places like 7-Eleven, Walmart, and a lot of Asian stores kind of stay open 7 days a week. But that was not the case, at least in Richmond, where I lived more than 10 years ago. And so you can only imagine, I didn't have groceries, I didn't have anywhere to go. I had not planned anything at the time, and it was a long day. It was a long day. And I remember telling myself that the next Christmas would never be anything similar to what I went through that year. I think that was probably 2010, thereabout. I swore to myself that I would never have a Christmas like that, because always with Christmas and these holidays, I was either at work or spending time with family and friends. And indeed, the following Christmas, of course, I had made lots of connections within Richmond. And those of you who are not familiar with Richmond, Richmond is a fantastic city, one of the best cities I've lived in. So besides the weather, the winter weather, Richmond was amazing. But I made lots of connections. There's a ton of diaspora groups out there. Kenyans, the Nigerians, you have Tanzanians, and we have lots of Ugandans as well. So we had a great time. So that one Christmas was exceedingly lonely, but I made connections and things changed. So again, for the same reasons as I mentioned earlier, Christmas can also be very boring and very lonely for folks who don't have the connections or have to work in places where there are no connections. But it also turns out that it can also be lonely for religious reasons. Back in Kenya, the typical Seventh-day Adventists don't celebrate Christmas. And maybe things have changed now, but I remember back in the day, SDAs were not allowed to celebrate anything Christmas. In fact, many of the folks in my circle believed that it was actually very evil to celebrate Christmas. And there's all kinds of explanations that I don't understand quite well. But SDAs in America absolutely celebrate Christmas. You go to church, there's decorations and all that. It's a very different world. So yes, for religious reasons, there are people who don't celebrate Christmas and don't recognize it, just do other things. So if it's a part of their traditions, it's fine. But when you are the only one who doesn't celebrate in a sea of people who go all out, it can be fairly isolating. So the 2 days, Thanksgiving and Christmas, are, in my view, literally some of the loneliest days in America. So I know almost most people I would say that I know would typically find something to do, whether it's TV, whether it's just walking around or doing things that don't require groups. Many of my friends simply watch football, but it can be lonely, even when you are amongst folks. So, like I say, in general, loneliness, the kind that we experience in diaspora, is unique in ways that you are less likely to experience in Kenya. And for the most part, because in Kenya, almost always you are surrounded by family. You rarely find yourself alone at any one point. So for me, this is one of the top reasons I am choosing to actually move back. And my family and I are working hard every day to make it possible for us to return permanently. But in the meantime, we are making the best of what we have, and I hope you are doing the same. So again, in the meantime, we choose to spend time with people who enjoy being around us. We choose to spend time in spaces where reciprocal love is available. Again, sometimes you give more than you get, or you receive more than you give. I don't think that is ideal. We choose to spend time in spaces where reciprocal love is available. Also, we choose to spend time in spaces where we can be who we are 100%. One feeling I hate as an adult is having to perform in a space. I want to be myself as best as I can in every space. So wherever I go, I don't want to filter myself. I want to be who I am. And again, as I grow older, I choose to spend time in spaces where fond memories can be made. And I hope you do that too. So well, folks, happy Thanksgiving. I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.